Power often wears a mask. It's easy to believe that those who demand control hold the real strength. They create a game of submission, where you're made to feel small, insignificant, and desperate for their approval. The rules seem simple. Beg, submit, and you might get what you want. But here's the catch. This power is just a mirage. It thrives on your belief that they hold something you can't live without. Begging is the trap. It promises relief, a temporary escape from pressure. But in reality, it only feeds the illusion of their power. When you plead, you're handing over your dignity, reinforcing the belief that they control you. Yet, what they're truly controlling is the narrative. They want you to believe they have power over you, when in truth their control is only as real as your willingness to play along. So, what happens when you stop playing? When you refuse to beg? The illusion shatters. The power dynamic crumbles. By not complying, you expose the fragile, empty foundation of their control. It's not about winning their game. It's about realizing the game was never real to begin with. The real power lies in your ability to stand firm, unshaken, and unbowed. Silence is often misinterpreted as weakness, but in reality, it can be the most powerful form of resistance. When you refuse to beg, you're not giving up, you're giving nothing. No words, no pleading, no validation. In a world where everyone expects a reaction, your refusal exposes a fundamental truth. Their power is meaningless without your consent. By standing silent, you strip them of the fuel they need to control you. The real victory lies in your ability to stand firm. It's easy to give in, to plead for mercy, to seek comfort. But choosing silence is a statement, one that declares you don't need their approval, their power, or their validation. It shows that you are in control of your own worth, and here's the beauty. By remaining silent, you rewrite the narrative. You no longer play by their rules, and you no longer accept their version of events. What was once a game of submission becomes a story of defiance, where you take back your agency and redefine the terms. Silence isn't about passivity. It's a bold declaration that you are in charge of your own fate. Begging might feel like a desperate act of survival, but in reality, it's a submission trap. When you beg, you're not just asking for help. You're handing over control. It creates an imbalance where the person you're pleading to now holds the power, an illusion of power that thrives on your dependence. You give them the ability to decide your worth, making you a puppet in their game. What's worse is that begging feeds manipulation. Those who thrive on control aren't interested in your well-being. They just want to reinforce their dominance. By begging, you unintentionally fuel their ego and their need for superiority. It becomes a cycle, where they demand more, and you give more, until the power dynamic is so warped, you don't even realize how much you've surrendered. The psychological cost of begging is profound. It chips away at your self-worth and autonomy, teaching you to seek validation outside yourself. Over time, you start believing you're not enough without their approval, that your value is something that can be granted or revoked by others. In the end, begging isn't a solution. It's a path to self-doubt and weakness, where the cost is always higher than the temporary relief it promises. Dependence may seem harmless at first, but it comes at a heavy price. When you beg, you begin to sell a narrative that you cannot survive without someone else's validation. It's a dangerous path because, over time, this dependence doesn't just diminish your power, it destroys your sense of self. The more you plead, the more you reinforce the idea that you are incapable without them. And soon, this belief becomes your reality. Breaking free from this cycle isn't easy, but it's necessary. The longer you stay trapped in the loop of begging, the harder it becomes to regain control. The act of pleading makes you feel small, and every time you give in, you lose a little more of your power. But here's the thing. The moment you decide to stop, you begin to reclaim your narrative. You start to define your worth on your own terms, without relying on someone else's approval. Reclaiming your power means letting go of the false belief that you need someone else to decide your value. It's about standing firm, no matter how hard the pressure, and realizing that your strength is not dependent on others. When you break free from the cycle of pleading, you don't just regain control. You become the author of your own story, rewriting it with courage and self-respect. Choice is one of the most powerful tools we have, yet many of us forget its importance when faced with pressure. When you choose to walk away instead of begging, you're not running from the challenge. You're embracing your own power. Walking away is often seen as a sign of weakness, but in reality, it takes immense courage to make the choice to stand alone. It's easy to beg, to plead for approval or mercy. It's harder to say, "I don't need you to define me." The unshakable resolve to stand alone comes from knowing that your worth is not tied to anyone else's opinion. It's about understanding that you don't need validation to survive, and that your strength is rooted within, not dependent on external sources. It's a mindset that allows you to withstand pressure without compromising your dignity. Choosing strength over submission isn't about pride, it's about self-respect. When you refuse to beg, you choose to stay true to yourself, even when the world around you pushes for submission. In those moments, you realize that true freedom lies not in begging for mercy, but in the ability to stand firm, make your own choices, and carve your own path without relying on anyone else's permission.